I am Stacy Leiter. I am graduating in 8 days, getting my bachelor's in political science. I'm a returning adult. So this will make sense then when I say this. I was about 6 when Watergate happened. And so even though my little mind didn't know what was going on, politics for the rest of my growing up years was always on my radar. But I never thought about studying it. And it was about 7 years ago, I was reading a book, ironically by a person involved in Watergate, and it was talking about, it's called Conservatives Without Conscience. And it was talking about, what can maybe explain why some politicians act the way they do. And I got to thinking, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Why do politicians do it? Oh, this is going to be interesting. Oh, okay, so maybe if I go back to college, I'll do political science. And finally, 3 years, a little over 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I decided now's the time, and so I came back and started studying political science. I love it. Right from the get-go, as soon as I got done with my first semester, I became a tutor over at CASA. And so I have been worked with students struggling with these abstract ideas in political science and been able to relate it to something in their life that they can understand. And so it's really cool when they start realizing, oh, wait a minute, I get it now. Great. It's fantastic. Yay. So that's that's the formal way I've done it. And I've also done it informally because whenever somebody in my family has a political question, it's like, hey, what does this mean? What does that mean? What's going on here? And it's like, okay. So I do it both formally and informally because I've done 2 presentations on it now. And I'm looking at, because I was wondering what happened to the American psyche in some respects, in one particular arena of political behavior after 9/11. And so it turns out my professor at the time, Professor Wolf, that was something he wanted to research as well. And so when we discovered that the data was available, he said, I'll tell you what, you can have it. And so now it's turned into this bigger, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more involved as I work my way towards my degree. So it's kind of interesting. I'm probably going to be a future dissertation because I have plenty of time to go to work on this thing. But it is kind of unusual to have a research topic that as an undergrad that you can just follow with, and for 2 years now that I've been working on it. I presented at the Indiana Political Science Association conference last year. And then last month, I presented at the Midwest Political Science Association conference. And it was mind-boggling. I never envisioned it. I didn't think I would, do 1, let alone 2 conference presentations when I started. But, looking back, I'm kind of glad I did. It is kind of these things that you have to make the opportunities. And so luckily I was able to do that, and it's paid off. And it's just paid off immensely. Aside from the research, I've also won a couple of scholarships as well. One of them was Kufadakis. I won that last year, so that was pretty neat. One of my huge surprises is the fact that I came in thinking I would study mostly American politics, and that went off course. And so now I love comparative politics, and I love learning about other countries' political systems and how they differ from ours. And as an offshoot of that, I have actually become a math nerd as I've learned to use quantitative methods in my research. So I would never have envisioned that ever for me to become a math nerd. The one thing that does get me, I kind of find surprising, and I've had it multiple times from students, is they have a perception of what political science classes are. And they often think that all the lectures descend into shouting matches. And so it's kind of disconcerting that people have this idea of what it is that we do. And they think that what they see on your 24/7 news channels, like CNN, Fox, MSNBC, those are pundits who are yelling at each other. And there's a huge difference between punditry and political science. So, even if there's a student who's contemplating a political science degree, if they think of becoming a pundit, then they're going to be incredibly disappointed about what political science actually is. But for those who think about it but are afraid it's going to turn in, they're all going to be shouting matches and everything, it scares them away. And we don't act that way. I mean, we're very reserved, and we're very middle of the road, and we're very like, yeah, you know what, ask me in 10 years. Then maybe I'll have a better idea of what's going to go on. So many people think it's politics. It's all about politics. But there's a component to it. But a lot of people go into public policy. Why you have certain, like, no smoking ordinances, and why you have changes in different laws, like now the Senate has passed a bill that's going to say that now online purchases have to be taxed, sales tax for each state. There's people who think about those things, and that's what they study. There are other people who they get interested in, like human rights. So we can take these very, very abstract things that don't make sense in the world, and we can build this bridge and make people understand it. And if they ever want to know why something is going on in some part of the world, political scientists can be like, okay, here's a short story. So we look how everything, in a lot of aspects, especially in the political sphere, meshes together. So, when we say elections, we think things, regular people, they think, oh, just go to the vote, go to the polls, vote. We think it's like, okay, well, what type of ballot design is there? What type of electoral system is it? What's the electoral formula? There's just so many things that go into it that you don't realize until you start delving into it. But it is fascinating. It's never ending, the possibilities that you can do. So in August, I will start my master's degree at the University of Akron. And they actually, which is kind of nice, they actually offered me an assistantship. So I don't have to pay for school. So any political science guys, you thinking about becoming a political science major, think about going to grad school. They'll pay for it if you're good enough, if you do well enough in school. But so it gives me a chance now. I can start teaching, at least teaching like we have supplemental instruction, that type of thing. So I start getting the teaching. I start getting into research assisting. So I'm looking forward to it. It's just great. And then beyond that, it's a PhD. Right from the get-go, I wanted to be a professor. So that hasn't changed. It's just that I'm going to be a professor in something I never expected myself to be a professor in.